How's it going, mountain bike fans? Eric here. Today I am going to start another project that I want to work on. I decided to scratch my new bike itch by refreshing an old one. So this is the front triangle of my Foes FXR. Many of you have probably seen the other videos of me, using this thing in enduro races and so on. It was obviously all black, and it had the lime green racing stickers on here. I kind of decided I was a little bit over that. I actually kind of prefer something a little more austere looking, earth tones, greens, browns, that kind of thing. You've all seen the Green Monster, my Foes Hydro, which is kind of like a forest green, army green, with the all-mountain style frame protection on it. For this bike, I'm going to just try to repaint it myself. I am not a professional bike painter by any means. I can't guarantee the results of how this is going to look. So far, as you can see, I've torn the bike down. I've got the rear triangle right here. The rear triangle here definitely needs a lot of cleanup. There was a lot of that 3M mastic tape on here that needs to be cleaned off. Brake cleaner has proven to be an effective way to get any kind of like residue from tape or what have you off of a frame. So this is going to take a little bit more effort than the front triangle. Front triangle is already pretty clean as it is. So once I get it all cleaned up, I'm going to try doing a camo paint job. So Rust-Oleum makes this brand of paint, or this type of paint I should say. It's non-reflective matte finish, which I kind of like, and they have like 4 or 5 different colors for this Rust-Oleum paint. So I'm going to go with the tan. I'm going to use a tan actually, because it's kind of make a little bit of a contrast with my green bike rather than have 2 green bikes. I'm going to make this one, the predominant color of this one, be this kind of desert tan with some black thrown in there. And I do have a little bit of the green camo as well. So there's a few different ways you can spray camo. What I've been researching, you can go really intense with the masking, actually getting contact paper and cutting out, the various mix and match shapes and stuff like that, and as you spray on each layer, then you can add more more of these shapes in there to create more of the mask effect. I might actually end up doing that. I don't want this to become like some sort of like just a sloppy, kind of trashy looking mess. I want this to look good. It's camouflage. It's going to have a certain vibe to it, of course. I want it to look good. I might go as far as masking it. The other technique is cut out stencils that you can move around holding the stencil while you spray, and it creates the pattern, and then you overlap that type of stuff. I might try that on some scrap, like a piece of cardboard or something like that, and just see how it looks, just to start off with. That might be a good look as well, like having the colors fade from one to the other. So I might try that just on a test piece, before I spray it on here, of course. If you've ever tried repainting anything, I've done some stuff like this with painting guitars, and I know from experience that it does take some time. This is not just an afternoon project. This is something that could take a solid week to really, if I spend a couple hours a day on it, to get it done. And that's okay, so if you ever want to do this, make sure you give yourself that time. So today is really just going to be all about finishing up the cleanup of the pieces and masking everything off, and then perhaps maybe shooting on a coat of primer, Rust-Oleum primer. I might even do a couple of coats on this just to make sure it's nice and thick, good solid, kind of go, sand everything, spray with primer, maybe hit it with some steel wool or whatever. Really make sure that there's no old gunk and crap. One thing I've discovered, when you take apart a mountain bike and you really start getting into the nooks and crannies, even if you are good about maintaining your bike and taking it apart and cleaning it, you can actually see right now, see all that dirt that's in there, just to kind of give you an idea of just how invasive that dirt can be and how important it is to keep your bikes clean, because that dirt can basically just find its way into everything. So you really want to make sure that you're taking care of your sled. Since this piece right here is actually the most clean, I'm actually gonna start a little bit more work on it right now. This is gonna be a fun project. I hope it'll be fun. I hope it comes out well. I think by giving it a facelift and throwing some new components at it, it will basically be a new bike, and something I can continue to enjoy for years to come. Let's get going on this. I'm gonna get it off the stand here. I'm gonna clean off my workbench, give myself some space to work. I'm gonna start with the cleaning and the sanding. Got both front and rear triangles pretty well sanded down at this point and cleaned up. It actually wasn't as bad as I was fearing to get the rear triangle cleaned up. There was a lot of that. I used that 3M mastic tape, and I had a lot of it on here, and so there was a lot of residue I had to clean off. So basically, what I did is I just used shop rags, and I soaked them with brake cleaner, and that with a little bit of elbow grease, that got it off. Gave them a good sand, 220, then 320. Sandpaper, and then some steel wool. I am seeing a few little bits here of some of that tape, so again I'm just going to use my shop rag and brake cleaner trick to just clean up the little spots here. I'm going to mask off anything where like bolts go in, so I'm going to mask off here on the other side. I'm going to mask off the caliper bolts, bolt holes, of course. You know, don't want to get any paint in there. Same thing with the axle holes, and of course over the bearings. I'm just going to leave these bearings in, but I'm going to mask around them, make sure no paint gets on there. That's pretty much it for this. On the front triangle, same thing. I'm going to mask off the headset, shock pivots down here as well, and of course the bottom bracket. I got a little bit of this built-in frame protection from here to here, so I'm going to mask that off as well. So this will stay black. My dad is a contractor, and he said whenever we do a painting job, he said, you know, 80% of the job is just trying to stay clean and prepping for the paint. Painting is easy. The work of a paint job is actually all the prep work, the masking and keeping things clean and getting the surface ready and all that fun stuff. So once I start shooting paint, that's actually going to go relatively fast. I'm excited about this now. I was about ready to sell this frame, but now that I've kind of got a little bit of the creative juices going, I'm excited about, you know, about the future of this project. So, all right, time to start masking. So I've got my pieces here ready to be sprayed with the first coat of primer. Got everything masked off. I just put painter's tape and then took a razor blade and trimmed it around. Yeah, so I've got an old dropper post that fits the seat post, so I don't care if I get any paint on that. It doesn't matter. It's old and kind of beat up. I hang on to things like that because you never know what could be like in this case, like a handy tool. I'm going to give it a couple coats of primer. Primer dries really quick, so I'm going to hopefully get on the first color of base paint today. And I just went and ordered all the parts, so I'm very excited. I'm essentially, hopefully, by the end of this week, I'm going to have myself a freshly rebuilt bike. So I got 2 coats of the primer on both the front and rear triangle, and while I was waiting for that to dry, I actually looked up a couple of different camo patterns, trying to decide what pattern I want to go with and how I'm going to apply it. I definitely want the desert tan to be my my base main color. So this is what I'm going to spray on first. I'm going to throw 2 coats on right now. I think what I'm going to do is then have my green be the second color, so like the larger splotches, if for the lack of a better term, will be in green, and then with some smaller black accents, just to kind of set it off a little bit. So I think this is going to be a good place to stop for the moment, because I just went right into putting on a second coat. This paint dries really, really fast. I mean, literally by the time I was done spraying the rear triangle, I was able to go right back into spraying the front triangle. It's supposed to be a flat color, obviously, because it's camouflage. It's supposed to be, super flat. Actually, I kind of really dig the color as it is. A buddy of mine has a Santa Cruz Nomad that's almost this exact color, and he has the all mountain style frame protection, so it actually kind of has that camo look, which is, I think it looks pretty cool, but I still want to go with my multicolor look. So far I'm happy with the way this is coming out, so I'm going to let this dry, and then tomorrow I'm going to come back and start applying the other colors. Good morning. Day 2 of the bike repainting project here. Last night after I was done spraying the base coat, I kind of went and did a little bit of research on some different desert camo patterns, and also different ways of applying, you know, a camouflage paint. So what I decided to do is to try a couple different patterns here. I just got this hunk of wood that I spray with the tan, and the first technique that I saw was to basically take just some cardstock. This is actually a container from a oil filter that I had floating around, and I just took some scissors and cut some random shapes that I can just basically just throw or hold to the piece, spray, and then maybe feather another color back in. So I'm gonna go in with the green first to kind of get, like, you know, the green blotches and stuff like that. I'm gonna try that first, and then feather in some black, you know, kind of like just some accent stuff. So just kind of get an idea of how this will work. Well, that was easy. As you can see, this really only took me about 5 minutes to do, if that. This is pretty much what I was kind of envisioning. You know, mostly tan with some green and the black accent. But this is pretty much what I've been thinking about. Obviously, this is a flat surface. You know, the shapes are going to come out a little bit differently than if they were on a, you know, the curved round surfaces of a bike frame. So, but at least this gives me an idea of the technique. Like I said, I want it to actually look like it's a piece of military equipment. So this is pretty much what I kind of had in mind. I'm gonna go right ahead and continue using my stencils here. They didn't get too soaked with paint because really just giving little shots. It's not like you're really soaking it down. It's really just little shots just to kind of make it, you know, just to kind of create that blast of color to, you know, that kind of will break up an outline. This is obviously what a camouflage is supposed to do. So I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hold the piece down, make my shot, and then hold another piece up against it to kind of like create a little bit more of a solid edge like this, as opposed to, so it's not all faded off. But I kind of like that, the way it fades from one color to the other, you know, and then kind of like the contrast between like the solid edge like this and then the fade. So that kind of works. So. I think it's about time to start assembling this bike. Basically emptied an entire can of clear coat. Here's the clear that I used, the Rust-Oleum matte clear coat. So it's added a little bit of a sheen, which is fine. Obviously camo paint, if I really wanted to keep myself in a stealthy mode, I wouldn't be doing anything that would cause a shine, but this is a mountain bike. I'm not going into combat with it. It's just going for a look here. So this is the stuff that I used, and I pretty much used there's a little bit left in this can. I bought a second can just in case I needed it, but I don't think I do. This ended up being like 5 coats. I think that's enough. I really do think it's enough. So now I received an order for the components that I'll be putting on here. I am going to be reusing my chopper post and my fork, and in the shock. So I'm also reusing my brakes, my Saint brakes, and I have an 11-speed XTR that I'm going to reuse for the time being. I'm going with, I've always had good luck with DT Swiss as far as wheel stuff. So because I am saving money on the frame, I decided to get a little bit more spendy with my hubs. So I went with the 240 hubs. 240s and the 350s are essentially the same design, but the 240s are just a little bit lighter. So I have the 350s on my downhill bike, and weight isn't as much of a concern. That bike is actually pretty light as it is in terms of a downhill bike, especially an alloy frame downhill bike. But for a bike that will spend, say half its time climbing as well as descending, I figured try to trim a little bit of weight. I got this DT Swiss hub. It's got the old style Shimano free hub on there because I'm reusing, like I said, my 11-speed XTR. But another reason why I wanted to go with, or stick with DT Swiss, you can kind of future-proof yourself with using DT because they're usually one of the first companies that if Shimano or SRAM come out with a new standard, a new free hub body, for example, you can just simply pop off the old driver, put the new driver on, and then install your new drivetrain. I wouldn't need to buy a new hub and build a whole new wheel. I'm still waiting on, I had a few items that were back ordered. I ordered some XM 481 rims, which are a little bit lighter weight than the 511s. I really wanted the 511s, but right now they are out of stock and probably will be for several weeks, like a lot of things right now. I'm going to build the 481s, and I could always get a 511 another time. Now that I have some tools, I can build up rims or build up new wheels relatively easily and quickly. That's also why I decided to stick with using alloy rims. When I rode Steve's bike, I really, really liked the Envy rims. I definitely noticed a difference there, and he was asking if they were worth it. I think they certainly are, if you've got the $2,000 to spend on a pair of rims, which I do not. This whole project is costing me about $2,000. So rather than double it by going with the Envies, as much as I would like to do that, it's just not in the cards, unfortunately. So I'll stick with the DT stuff. Plus, it's easier with the spoke calculator on the DT website. I can just, punch in the parts I'm using, and it spits out a proper spoke length and rock and roll. So I'm sticking with that, but I have to wait for those parts anyway. They didn't come in with the order that I received yesterday. So I'm waiting on my the front hub, which is also a DT Swiss 240. Oh, the tires. I'm going to go with an Assegai in the front and a Minion SS in the back. I figure that's a good combination for an enduro bike. So I just gotta wait on that stuff. I do have the old wheels and a couple of old tires that I can throw on here, just to kind of get a rolling chassis, if you will. They're not the best, but at least it'll be something to get me through until I can get my new wheels built up. What I'm going to do for today is I'm going to put the frame back together. I'm going to put bottom bracket and cranks on and the dropper. Going with a race face next bar, 800 millimeter. I've always liked the big wide bars. I always preferred the 800 mil bars. I tried trimming down the bar that was on this bike. I trimmed it to 760. It was way too narrow, which is really kind of funny because I look back at old videos, like the Collective and Rome, and look at the bars that those guys have. The opening sequence of Rome, for example, Darren Bearcloth is riding an SX Trail 3. I used to have an SX Trail 3, pretty much the exact same bike, and looking at the bar he had on that, Rome came out in right around 2005, I think, 2006. This is the bar that was being used by the Claw. This is 660. So this is actually 100 millimeters shorter than a bar that I thought was too short. For me, 800 is the way to go for sure. Kind of funny, you know, to look at that. This time around, I'm going with the 35 millimeter clamping surface. I don't know if that's any better. Jury's kind of still out how much of the difference that really makes. I mean, it would seem to me that you know, a bigger tube will be stronger. For roughly the same money, it's worth a shot. So that's what I'm gonna do. I also got race face stem, and this is a 50 millimeter stem. And another thing, this is alloy. I really like. I'm picking this thing up, and it is nice and light. Again, this is something I had an older race face stem, which was this really big hunk of metal. Okay, so here's the older race face stem that I was using. You could defend yourself in a home invasion with this thing. This thing is heavy, you know, compared to this. This is, I mean, I don't know exactly. I don't have a scale, so I can't exactly weigh these. But there's a clear difference in weight. This one's a lot heavier. So another piece that will save some weight right here. Next piece of goodies I'm gonna be throwing at this bike is a new pair of cranks. Get some Race Face Next carbon cranks. I've been really pleased with 6 cranks that I have on my Hydro. Relatively light, they're stiff, so I'm gonna give a go with these Next cranks. Also went with the orange print on there. It kind of matches the bar, which will also match the fork. I'm gonna keep the lowers of my fork orange. So I think that'll be a nice little kind of flashes of color that will kind of offset the camo. Because I have the DT rear hub, I got the star ratchet as well. If you ever buy a DT hub, I definitely recommend upgrading to the 54 tooth star ratchet. It's a little bit of extra dough, but it's well worth it. The engagement's a lot faster. Also, I like my hubs to be nice and loud. I kind of subscribe to the theory of the Chris King buzz or the Industry 9, you know, ratchet, you know, with their 120 points of engagement. This is 54. I think 54 is good. I definitely recommend you go with one of these if you decide to buy DT hubs, you know, the 350s or the 240s. Very easy to swap it out. Takes 2 seconds. Just pop the free hub body off and just swap the rings, and you're in business. You got a nice buzz as you're riding down the trail. And finally, I'm going to finish it off with actually a company probably my longest running business relationship, if you will, ODI grips. I'm going to try these Elite Flows. I actually really like the Elite Pro grips. One of the things I really like about both these and the Elite Pros are there's this little kind of like waffle iron thing. When you grip the bar, your fingertips kind of reach in there, and they kind of have they get some purchase in there. I was a big fan of the ODI Rogues for a long time. I was using the Elite Pros, and then when I dislocated my finger, you can see my finger's a little funky looking there. When I started riding again, I was having a little bit of trouble gripping a lower profile grip like this, so I switched back to the Rogues, which are a bigger diameter. But now that I have, you know, pretty much most of my function and mobility back in my finger, I'm going back to the Pros and the Flows. There it is. So I think it's everything to kind of give me a good start for reassembling this bike today. Let's get to it. All right, guys, here is the completed bike. For the exception of the wheels. As you can see, I still have the old WTB wheels. I'm still waiting on the parts, the front DT hub as well as my rims. But it'll probably be another week before I get those built up. So rather than make you guys wait that long for the recap of this build, I figured I might as well just show you what I've got right now. And if you follow my Instagram, you'll definitely be seeing a post about that. So here's the rundown of what I've got. So starting front to back, WTB wheel in the front on my Fox 36. That's a 180 millimeter 36 with the Grip 2 damper. Moving up, I've got, well, I added a Cane Creek angle set. As you can kind of, let me turn it, I don't know if you can kind of see in there, but you can see how it's like tilted out a little bit. And that gives me, say, 1.5 degrees. So it's now at 64.5 degrees. I apologize, by the way, for the bike being a little bit dirty. I did wash it, but I rode it at Sky Park a couple days ago where it was like super muddy and super rainy. And I, of course, got super dirty. So I did wash it, but it's still like little bits of dirt and stuff all over this bike. So I apologize for the not being absolutely pristine. The race face stem, 35 millimeter diameter clamp, and it's 50 millimeters long. On the next bar, with the cool orange to set it off. XTR shifter, it's 11 speed. These are Saint brakes. I thought about going with newer brakes, but these still work just fine. In fact, this set of brakes, actually this lever is new, but this set of brakes actually was on an Intense M6 I had about 5 or 6 years ago. These brakes are they're still ticking, so I have no reason to replace them yet. Got wolf tooth dropper remote. And by the way, if you do a lot of trail riding on multi-use trails, this bell, timber bell, is really handy because it just has this switch. You can turn the bell on and off, so it's not annoying when you don't want it to be annoying. It just lives in my bar. Back in the day when I had a cowbell, I would always seem to forget the cowbell. So now this bell just lives on the bar and I never forget it. I also have one on my downhill bike too, just because sometimes I take that out onto multi-use trails. Moving on down the frame, so here is the camo that you've all been watching. I did apply some frame protection here. I've got some all mountain style protection on the down tube, which goes right into the factory protection that's installed on the frame when I bought it. There's a little bit of the AMS stuff right here, along with just some 3M mastic tape that I kind of just wrap all around the chain stays and stuff like that. Quiets chain slap, and also keeps the paint from getting all dinged up from the chain slapping against it. As you can see, I've also got some that's up in the middle here to protect from cable rub. This is really handy stuff. I got some here, down here, and I have some on the other side as well, right over there. So anywhere where anything will be contacting the frame, I either have the AMS protection or I have that 3M tape. And you can just get that on Amazon. It's like 3228 3M rubber mastic tape, I think is what it's called. It's not a very sexy name, but it is really handy stuff if you need to quiet your bike down. You know, it's relatively inexpensive. I always keep some on hand. Okay, so I got the DH-X2 shock, 525-pound spring, SLS spring. It's been rebuilt a couple of times by Advanced Dynamics. Travis does really good work. Quick turnaround. If you're in like the Los Angeles area and you want a quick turnaround on some shock repair, he's definitely the guy to talk to. It's right about the same cost that Fox would charge, but you don't have to deal with the mumbo jumbo of sending it off. You could just bring it to him, he'll work on it, and in a couple days you got your shock back. Down to the cranks. These are the next cranks we were talking about. This is a 34 tooth direct mount chainring. I'm using Time ATAC DH clipless pedals. These are some pedals that the brand that I was recommended to use when I first started riding, or not long after I started riding. I was curious about clipless pedals. These were the pedals that were recommended to me, and I've always just stuck with them. I was a flat pedal rider for a while, but I definitely prefer to clip in. I'm just a clips rider. Okay, moving on. 11 speed in the back. So it's that's a 10 to 42 cassette. I may eventually jump up to the 12 speed, but this still had plenty of life left in it, so that's why I'm still using it. Same thing with my derailleur, XTR derailleur. Got my brake rotors that's a 180 in the back, 203 in the front. I have the adapter because normally the posts on a 36 would accommodate a 180 rotors, but I like having a bigger rotor in the front, so I got the adapter to put the 203. Fox transfer dropper, the SDG saddle, and yes, I know it's still the lime green accents that would match the stickers that used to be on this bike. They make one with an orange that would match, so I'm going to get one of those hopefully sooner than later, because I know this is kind of it kind of clashes, I know, but I really like this. This is actually a pretty comfortable saddle, so that's why I left it on there for the time being. For tires, Assegai in the front. And at the moment, I've got this DHF in the back. I just wanted to use this tire because it still had some life in it. Like I said, it was just when I had these kicking around just to kind of get the bike up and running. Like I said, my plan is the Assegai front and a Minion SS in the back, a much faster rolling tire. Well, guys, there you have it. Basically, the rundown of this bike refurbishing project. You know, I mean, I like to do stuff like this all the time. Obviously getting a new bike is always fun. I will always have something on the shopping list as far as a new bike goes, but obviously sometimes that's just not in the cards, or you know, either financially, or as in the case right now with the COVID situation, sometimes stuff is just hard to get. Even if you have the budget for it and you're ready to purchase, sometimes you just can't get parts, so you got to make do with what you've got until things become available. I'm kind of somewhere in between. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm always posting new content on fitness, mountain biking, and adventure. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.